Happy Saturday, folks, and welcome back to WrestleRant right here on the YouTube channel. Your host with the most, Graham G.S.M. Matthews. A little disclaimer before we get started here. A garbage truck is right outside my dorm window, so if you hear that in the background, I apologize. Hopefully it's gone in the next few minutes. But yeah, for the entire month of April, I'm reviewing every Backlash installment in history from 1999 to 2008. My review of the 09 installment is already up here on the series from last year if you want to go back and check it out. But Backlash has been a lot of fun to watch. I've watched already 1999, 2000, 2001. My reviews of all those shows are already up here on the channel from last weekend and this past Tuesday. So if you want to catch up, make sure to go back and check out those first before listening to this one and any subsequent additions. But we got 02 today, 03 tomorrow, and 04 on Tuesday. These last three installments, I mean, the Backlash installments up to this point have been really, really good, this one included. Not as strong as some of the other ones, but even still, kind of breaking it down, starting with the opening match for the Cruiserweight Championship, Billy Kidman defending against Tajiri. So a pretty nice Cruiserweight match, kick off the show, really nothing, too much special about it, aside from Tajiri just kind of being a complete dick to his fiancée, Tori Wilson, who would play a pretty big role in Backlash, both this year, as, Tajiri's valet, as well as, I don't know if it was the 04 installment, I think it was 03, when she got in the fight with Stacy Keibler. I want to say it was 03. Yeah, it definitely was 03. That was before the brand extension was still existing at that point, but pay-per-views weren't split up Raw and SmackDown. That wasn't up until Backlash the following year, when it would become an exclusively Raw pay-per-view up until 2007. But like I was saying before, a good match to kick off the show. Nothing too special about it. Tajiri coming out victorious after spraying Billy Kidman in the face with the notorious, I don't know if it was green. I think it might have been red on the show. I want to say it was green, though, per usual. Spraying Billy Kidman with the mist to cheat and pick up the victory, as well as the Cruiserweight Championship. So a nice little opener from the Cruiserweight guys. Like I said, nothing too notable. The only storyline aspect about it was Tajiri, treating Tori Wilson, his valet, like a complete bastard, like a complete bitch. Tajiri was to Tori Wilson. So that was a nice opener to kick off the show. Up next, Scott Hall with X-Pac in his corner, taking on Bradshaw. So the only really entertaining thing about this matchup was hearing the NWO music again. I know the incarnation of the group coming out of WrestleMania after Hulk Hogan went babyface, and they were left with Hall and Nash, who was injured, actually. I don't think he was on the show. I think he was in the corner of Scott Hall. I don't even know. I think it might have been... Yeah, I think he might have been in the corner of Scott... No, he wasn't even in the corner of his... No, I think he might have been suspended in storyline at this point in time. He was injured maybe at the month prior for WrestleMania 18, but nevertheless, that was really the only entertaining part about this match for me anyway. I thought it was a fine match, clocking in at almost 5-6 minutes. Nothing too special about it. Farouk, who Bradshaw kind of reunited with earlier on in the evening, right before this matchup, came down to save him, but it did not aid him in victory. Scott Hall ended up picking up the win, and that was pretty much it. Like I said before, the incarnation that came after WrestleMania without Hogan and only Hall, Nash, as well as X-Pac was not as strong as the original. But, even hearing that music again for me is always great. I'm a huge NWO mark. But, Scott Hall was not in the best of places at this point in time in his life and in his career. And I think this was one of his final matches. I don't know if he competed at the next pay-per-view. I think he might have been gone shortly following this pay-per-view match. So this might have been his final pay-per-view match in WWE history. Not very much of a great match, but it was fine for what it was. Not terrible, I will say that. Up next for the Women's Championship, Jazz defending against Trish Stratus. I believe it's at WrestleMania 19 where Jazz won that title from Trish, and maybe a triple threat match, I want to say, from WrestleMania 18. And a match, I believe, also involving Lita, if my memory recalls or serves me correctly. Pretty good match. I mean, they really weren't given much time. I know people like to look back fondly on the women's division around this period in time, and it was pretty good, in a better state than it is in today, even though, today's state of the women's division is improving, I will say that. But, I mean, it's not like they were given 15 minutes to shine. It was only 4 or 5 minutes in the match that got the shortest amount of time of any other match on this card. And Jazz came out victorious, still your women's champion, some fine women's action, nothing too great, and considering the fact it involved Trish. But still, I thought it was a fine match, nothing, offensively bad or anything like that. Some good action from Jazz and Trish. I think Jazz, kind of on a side note here, kind of to go on a kind of a tangent real quick, I think Jazz eventually will end up in the WWE Hall of Fame, because as I've said before, I think I might have mentioned it in my video blog from last Friday, from 8 days ago, that they are kind of running out of women to induct into the WWE Hall of Fame. We've got Alundra Blaze, we've got Fabulous Moolah, Mae Young, Lita, Trish, Wendy Richter, and everyone else in between. So they're kind of running out of credible people to put in the Hall of Fame, and I think Jazz kind of had an impact on the women's division from the brief time that she was in there for. I thought she did a pretty good job, kind of revolutionizing women's wrestling, along with Trish and Lita being a successful women's champion and kind of being a first of her kind, not being the model like Sable or Trish or whoever. She was kind of her own unique identity, her own unique person, a one-of-a-kind competitor, and very strong at that, kind of an interesting physique. But yeah, I think she might end up in the WWE Hall of Fame one day. I just kind of wanted to put that out there. But up next, Brock Lesnar's first pay-per-view match in WWE history, taking on Jeff Hardy in singles competition with Paul Heyman in Brock Lesnar's corner, and Lita coming out to Jeff Hardy's to his aid in his corner. Pretty much a glorified squash. I didn't really like how Jeff Hardy got as much offense as he did on Brock. I think he hit the swanton at one point and got like a closed 2 count. Yes, it made for a suspenseful moment, but they were just starting to build Brock up. I think the best thing that you can do with him to establish him as a dominant force is to go over quickly on the Hardys, much like he did it with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania or John Cena last year at SummerSlam. That's how you establish someone as a beast, as a monster, as a dominant human being, and a force to be reckoned with. And even it was a good match, but it wasn't supposed to be about the in-ring action. It was supposed to be about making Lesnar look strong, and they still made him look strong in defeat, but they could have done so a little bit more effectively had they not Jeff Hardy get in as much offense as he did. Like I said, hitting the swanton and getting a 2 count for no reason kind of seemed a little bit useless, other than getting that suspenseful moment right before Brock Lesnar picked up the victory. So it was a good match for what it was, nothing too noteworthy aside from the fact that it was Lesnar's first pay-per-view match in WWE history, before I think he and Heyman would take on the Hardy Boys in either a tag team match or a handicap match at Judgment Day the following month. But like I said, a fine match, but I would have booked it a little bit differently with Lesnar getting in more offense on Jeff Hardy. I know Jeff Hardy was a very popular character, obviously, but it was all about Brock. The focus was never on Jeff. It was all about making Brock look strong in victory. So up next, Kurt Angle versus Edge, what I thought was the match of the night. Absolutely fantastic matchup. Edge and Kurt Angle having a pretty noteworthy feud for the first half of 2002 over on the SmackDown brand that arguably kind of solidified Edge as a star and picking up wins over Kurt Angle, not including on this show. It would also lead to Edge shaving Kurt Angle bald and the "You Suck" chance. This might have been the first pay-per-view that had the "You Suck" chance for Kurt Angle, if I recall correctly. But a really, really good matchup, I thought, especially down the stretch, all the different counters and reversals, and Edge making out to look like, an equal to Kurt Angle, who only 1 year prior Edge was, a glorified tag team wrestler and kind of exceeding expectations of him, set by fans, and kind of becoming a single star on his own. And as we would know, 10 years later, kind of etching himself into the WWE record books as a Hall of Famer. But a great showing against Kurt Angle. Like I said, what I thought was the match of the night. A lot of great chemistry between these two competitors, and only the start of a long series of matches between the two over the spring season of 2002. So a fantastic match. Like I said before, Kurt Angle comes out with the victory, but the feud does not end there. Up next for the Intercontinental Championship, Eddie Guerrero taking on Rob Van Dam. Another feud that would kind of transcend for the entire spring season of 2002. Starting with this pay-per-view, they collided at Judgment Day. I know they also had a really good match, a ladder match at that, I think on Raw in May as well, right after their Judgment Day meeting. So these guys kind of collided over the championship various times during the spring season of 2002. And as only one would expect, a great match from RVD and Eddie. RVD was really on fire throughout most of 2002, getting that world opportunity later that year. The guy was on absolute fire for most of 2002. And Eddie Guerrero, in his own right, was always awesome, always over, and always an incredible athlete. So it was only logical to think that these two would put on a great match. And that's exactly what they did. They got some decent amount of time, almost 12 minutes. Eddie Guerrero coming out victorious as the new Intercontinental Champion. So a pretty noteworthy moment with a new champion being crowned, and great action as well that would also, like I said, with Kurt Angle and Edge, kind of serving as the starting point of this long tenured feud between the two competitors. Up next, The Undertaker versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, in a match to determine the number one contender to the undisputed WWF Championship, with Ric Flair serving as the special guest referee. So the match wasn't as epic or as monumental as one would expect. I know, their former foes, they faced off, I believe, at the 1998, or 97? I think it was 98, installment of SummerSlam, I believe, for the championship. And they would meet all these years later, and 4 years later in 2002. And much like Scott Hall, Stone Cold was not in the best state of mind at this period in time. The What chants, I know they were kind of popularized around this period in time. I was not a fan. I still am not a fan of the What chants. So their oversaturation in this matchup from the fans was kind of annoying at points. But the match itself was solid. I'm not going to say it was a great match. I didn't think it was as great as it could have been. Stone Cold Steve Austin wasn't exactly in his prime at this point in time. And The Undertaker, is always good. But I think more of the story was on, not a lot of the emphasis was on Ric Flair, thankfully. He was not the focus of this matchup, but his botch towards the end was when he screwed up the 3 count and handed the victory to The Undertaker, who he had just faced at WrestleMania 1 month prior. So I don't know. I don't think they put enough heat on the the rivalry that Ric Flair and Undertaker had. There was never really, Ric Flair kind of played it down the middle. And I'm glad there wasn't as much emphasis on him, like I said, but it would have been nice how they kind of acknowledged the history between those two, and that Ric Flair could screw over Undertaker at any moment. But Ric Flair did not count, after Undertaker cheated, Ric Flair did not catch that Stone Cold's foot was on the rope, so that would kind of lead to those two feuding and Ric Flair turning heel shortly thereafterwards. But, solid match. Kind of went a little bit longer than it should have at almost 27 minutes. No other match in the show went that long. I would have taken some time from that match and kind of give it to either Angle and Edge, or Eddie and RVD, because I thought the match was solid, but it was kind of dragged out a little bit, and it never really felt like an important stipulation was at stake in the winner earning a future championship match for the undisputed title. So a good match, not as great as it could have been, but still solid for what it was. Up next, for the tag team championships, Billy and Chuck defending against Maven and Al Snow, with Rico in Billy and Chuck's corner. Pretty, standard tag team match. No one cared. Obviously serving as the filler match in between, or as the buffer match, between the two main events of Undertaker and Stone Cold, and Hogan and Triple H, which I'll get to in a moment. But the crowd is pretty much dead for it. Billy and Chuck, they had a fun act. Looking back on it, it was kind of funny and stuff. But as a tag team, they were also really good wrestlers. But the focus was more on their gimmick than it was their in-ring ability. And Al Snow and Maven are also really good. I believe they had kind of that history from Tough Enough, from which Maven won earlier that year, maybe the year prior. Regardless, though, they were kind of like an oddball tag team. Never really felt like that the tag team titles were at stake. Crowd didn't care. I would give it maybe a star or 2 out of 5. Like I said, not a terrible matchup, just no one cared, and it kind of served as the filler going into the main event. So Billy and Chuck coming up victorious, still the tag team champions. And in the main event, for the undisputed WWF Championship, Triple H defending against Hollywood Hulk Hogan. So Hulk Hogan, of course, coming out of WrestleMania, was the most popular act, the hottest act in all of WWE, kind of going back babyface, and to the point where people obviously were favoring him over Triple H. And I can feel for Triple H. The guy comes back, wins in the main event of WrestleMania, wins back the Undisputed Championship, the fanfare of the fans, coming back to a huge, thunderous reaction in MSG in early January to go on to win the Rumble. This should have been his year, but truth be told, it was not, or at least for the first half of it anyway. After winning the Rumble, after winning after winning the main event of WrestleMania, the focus should have been on him, but they would have never anticipated what was going to happen at WrestleMania with Hogan. Whether that was the long-term plan or not, with turning Hogan babyface, I'll never really know, I guess. Maybe it's been revealed, I'm not really sure. It might have been in the plans the entire time, but regardless, he obviously became much more over than Triple H. And because of that, due to his immense popularity, they had to put the championship back on Hogan, even though he was not in the greatest of shape, and Hogan has never been the greatest wrestler, especially at the age of whatever he was 13 years ago. But the match itself was not atrocious. From an in-ring standpoint, was it good? Definitely not. But from an entertainment standpoint, I don't want to say it was on the level of Rock and Hogan. Nothing's going to beat that. But it was kind of that esque kind of contest in that it was more so on the entertainment aspect and getting the crowd invested in the action, in which they absolutely were. They were dying to see Hogan win that championship, in which he did, beat Triple H clean to win the undisputed WWF title, his first WWE title in nearly 9 years. Or 8 years, maybe. I think he lost. In 1993 was his last title reign before this, so winning the 6th championship reign on this show, beating Triple H, a title that he would only hold, I think, for the next month before dropping it to The Undertaker the following month. So the championship kind of played hot potato throughout most of '02, but Still, though, an entertaining main event. Hogan was, red hot, on fire. Triple H played his role well, and it would kind of come as no surprise that he would turn heel shortly thereafterwards. It's always been the role that he's been better at, but after being kind of overshadowed by the most popular guy in the company, they really had no choice. So I feel bad for Triple H, but he turned a negative into a positive by turning heel later on that year. But 3 new champions crowned on this show: a new Cruiserweight champion, a new Intercontinental champion, and a new WWE champion. So a very noteworthy show from that aspect. But on the whole, not a stellar show, and not kind of on the same level as the 99 and 2000 and 01 installments. On the whole, though, I thought it was still a good show. You had some really good action with Angle and Edge, and then Eddie and RVD. 2 fantastic matches in the middle of the show. And the main events were not phenomenal. They weren't really all that notable from a wrestling standpoint, but they were solid outings from Taker, Austin, Hogan, and Triple H. Then the undercard was what it was, nothing too special. It was kind of forgettable, but it kind of served its purpose and everything kind of involved on the show. So on the whole, though, I thought it was a good show. Definitely go back and check it out. I give it 1 thumbs up. If you want to check it out, it's on the WWE Network, where I watch all my pay-per-views, with the exception of those, of course, that I watch on DVD. But of course, I don't have any of the Judgment or the Backlash events on DVD. So go back and watch it and check it out on the network for yourself. So as always, guys, you can support the show by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. Are you subscribed? Yeah, I put up videos every single day. So make sure to come back every single day for new reviews of Backlash or my hashtag AskGSM videos, random video blogs, WrestleRant radio excerpts, and much, much more every single day of the week. How many YouTubers do you know upload content every single day of the week? I don't take a day off, people. Hashtag no days off. This is still from Darren Young. But nevertheless, you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/gram.gsm.matthews, on Twitter at twitter.com/WrestleRant. Make sure to find me on nextdayWrestling.net for my full reviews, my written reviews of pay-per-views, Raws and SmackDowns, NXT, Lucha Underground, TNA, and everything else dating back all the way to 2011. So a lot of content to check up there as well. So as I noted in the start of the video, I'll be back tomorrow here on the channel with my review of Backlash 2003. I'll catch you guys then.